Hospice home haunts. A few years ago, I was a CNA, certified nursing assistant. I worked at a nursing home and had a few encounters there, but nothing prepared me for everything that would happen when I started working at a hospice home. It essentially is where people go to die, people that are sick and don't have a lot of time. The facility was amazing and worked quick on getting people in. I can make another post about everything I did at the hospice home if anybody is interested. The point is, a lot of people passed away in the building and a lot when I was working, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I always opened the window in the residence room after someone passed away, my way of freeing the spirits so they wouldn't be trapped. No one else unfortunately did this. On to the main point of this post. We have 2 wings of the building and each wing has a huge linen closet, tons of sheets, blankets, comforters, towels, washcloths, gowns, etc. When you open the door, both walls are lined with racks filled with linen. You can walk down into the room a couple hundred feet and then turn to the right and it's a little area where extra stuff is stored. Things for a bed bath and hygiene things for the residents. You are completely hidden when you are in this area on the right. A resident woke up around midnight and wanted to get cleaned up, so I was going to give them a bed bath. I went into the linen closet and headed to the area on the right and was grabbing soap, toothbrush, toothpaste, a little basin, and other things. I heard the linen closet door open and close. We have 1 CNA and 1 RN on each wing during the night shift. I figured it was the nurse or the CNA for the other side. Sometimes we grab each other if we need help. I then heard a female voice say, "Hello? I'm just grabbing stuff for a bath. Do you need help?" I answered, figuring it was the nurse. "I'm so cold." "I can bring you a blanket. Maybe I'll throw it in the dryer again like last week." I laugh. I turn around and head to walk back down the main area of the linen closet and nobody is there. I didn't hear the door open again, so no one left and there is no place to hide. I then feel someone grab my shoulder. I scream and drop everything as I turn around so quickly, and of course nobody is there. I ran out of there so fast. I tried to tell the nurse, but I wasn't making any sense until I calmed down. She stuck by my side the rest of the night. I didn't go back into the linen closet that night. When they had grabbed me, it felt like it touched my bare skin, and it was cold. This was one instance of so many encounters I experienced. The Man in Black. I've always told this story to friends around a campfire or when ghost stories are prompted, but never have I told it from my perspective on the internet. I've always been a huge skeptic, never seen a single paranormal thing in my life. I'm a see to believe type of person. The most I believe in is karma. I've never formed myself to any religion, and when I tried, it just didn't work. I was around the age of 11. My sister was around 8 years old. We lived with our parents in a quaint little neighborhood. We walked to the bus stop every morning together for school. One morning, in the middle of winter, we were walking to our bus stop. She started to scream. She was hysterical. Nothing could calm her down. She kept screaming, "He's standing right there. He's right there." We'd look around. There was absolutely nothing. We were pretty spooked, obviously, but we went on with our day like normal and later told our parents what had happened. We started to finally ask her to describe what she saw. She had mentioned it was an abnormally tall figure in all black and you couldn't make any facial features out, so she wasn't sure who, or better yet, what it was. It would normally be seen off in the distance, in a window, or behind a tall tree. We were at a park one time after school, riding our bikes down a hill, and she had stopped in her tracks. It was extremely difficult to hold a bike down a grassy hill, but she stopped out of fear. She had saw it behind one of the pines in the distance. You know, the ones where the branches are far above the average adult's head. She said, I see him right there. His head touches the branches. And my heart dropped. I couldn't see it, but I could sense how absolutely terrified she was. And it shook me to my core. We immediately turned our bikes around and headed straight home. Over time, it became the normal. She started to have more frequent visits from this tall figure, and we started getting really worried. We shook it off as a joke at first, or maybe she wasn't all there, but the way she described how she felt when she saw him gave us a bit of truth to her stories. Our grandfather had just passed away, so we figured with losing him, it triggered something in her. At that time, we were attending church. We'd go for youth nights after around 7 during the summer. We'd play outside and run around the church playing hide and seek or tag. One time, we were outside running around as usual, and she had come up to me and said, I just saw Jason. He was a good friend of our family who attended the church. Always wore a trench coat, always had his hair slicked back. Pretty cool dude. We had come to the entrance of the church, ready to go home, and my sister had mentioned that she saw him with our family members. They told us Jason was off on a mission in another country. They got worried and took us home immediately in case it was a predator, or what we both imagined to be another visit from her shadowy friend. Here's a turning point to the story. She shared a bedroom with our grandmother. They kept the door open sometimes when they'd go to bed. Anyone else would think that's insane for this exact reason. But she started to see figures in the house. One night, we had heard sirens across the street. We woke up and immediately got bombarded with phone calls from my mom. She couldn't get onto our street because police and ambulance had the road blocked off. My grandmother, my mother, my sister and myself were all standing outside on our front yard to see the windows had been shot out across the street. We found out the following morning the neighbor across the street from us had a home intruder and they had shot the intruder's knees out. There was a huge gap in time where she didn't see the shadowy figure for years. Our mom, several years later, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer of the immune system. We had moved to a new house. The basement was always flooding with sewage. Eventually, we had sewage coming up through our pipes, sinks, and tub. And with all the bacteria in the air, she had a very hard time fighting off infection. We almost lost her. She told us never to go into the basement. That eventually made my sister fabricate these new horrors, most of which she won't ever describe to us. But what she kept seeing around this house was new and evil. We eventually moved from that house and it was demolished shortly after. The last time that she ever saw the man in black was in a dream. She was around the age of 18. She said she was walking into our old basement and she saw these little soot ball creatures on the floor. She was carefully trying not to step on them. She finally got to the bottom of the basement and in the corner was a girl in white, crying. The girl had reached her hand out to my sister and without any notice, she felt a familiar presence behind her. She had turned around and there was the tall shadow figure. He very quickly wrapped his arms around my sister and pulled her away from the girl. And then she woke up. To this day, I still get freaked out and I get chills typing this story out and telling it to others. She came to a realization the day she had the dream that maybe the shadowy figure was something she shouldn't have been afraid of, but maybe it was something trying to warn her, like a bad omen. She had first saw him after our grandfather died, before the intruder across the street several times before our grandmother passed, a lot before our mother was diagnosed with cancer, and a lot when we lived in the house that damn near killed her. When she saw him at the church outside, we were sure someone real outside of the shadowy figure was watching us, and we feel that him being there might have been a warning that the predator was nearby. Again, I'm still skeptical to this day, but whenever I tell this story, it just sends chills down my spine. I always catch myself looking over my shoulder, hoping nothing is there when I tell it. Has anyone ever encountered static people? When I was about 6 or 7, I was staying with my aunt over Christmas break. I used to have these very vivid nightmares where I couldn't move or speak, and the worst things would appear in my room, leaving me helpless. I found out later it was sleep paralysis. I don't have many episodes anymore, but they were a constant nightly thing for 6 years. Well, on one of these nights I was laying in bed, dreading sleep and staring at the ceiling. I started to feel uneasy, and something inside me began to shout red flags. As my eyes began to survey the room, I noticed figures in the darkness, a lot of them, so many it was hard to keep track. They were all fuzzy, like when the TV goes out, but they were quiet, never spoke. They had no indistinguishable features. They were all different in height, moving around the room, almost as if they were dancing. No matter if I closed my eyes and opened them again, they were still there. At some point, I remember just locking my eyes on them, too afraid to look away. I was so scared, I couldn't open my mouth to call for my aunt. I just watched them for what seemed like hours, and then suddenly, it was like the static dropped and they were all gone. I used to see them so much when I was younger. Now I don't think I've seen one since I was 12. I hear a lot of people talking about the Hat Man, who was a figure that regularly visited me along with this tiny red man who would watch me from the edge of my bed, but no one has ever talked about the static people. I'm sure this is a thing that a lot of people have encountered, or am I alone in this? Weird stuff after my grandpa died. Before I tell this story, I just want to preface it by saying that this isn't scary. I've never believed in ghosts, and even after all of this, I still don't believe in ghosts. With that said, a part of me wants to believe that none of this is coincidence, and I still thought it was worth sharing here. In the spring of 2019, my grandpa was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. When he found out, he gave my mom an acre of his land where an old barn used to be, a car, and some tools and valuable stuff. A few months after he was diagnosed, we all knew he was close to his last day, so the whole family gathered at his house to be with him in his final moments. The moment he passed away, the light in the living room flickered. We all noticed it, but nobody said anything about it because we were preoccupied with hugs and crying. After that, we shared memories, talked for a while, and went home. We all met up there the next day since we kind of just wanted to be around family while we mourned. After saying hi to everyone, I ended up sitting next to my great aunt, grandpa's sister, and we were just sharing memories. At some point, she brought up the lights flickering right when he passed, and as soon as the word flickered came out of her mouth, the lights flickered again. We all looked at each other in amazement, and then she said, "Brad, if you're watching over us, please give us a sign." And sure enough, the lights flickered again. Those of us who were there all kind of laughed, and I felt a wave of relief as it was the first time I'd heard anyone laugh in days. We went about the rest of our day as normal, and I went home. My mom, grandma, younger sister, and a couple of my younger cousins decided to stay the night. Apparently, at some point in the night, my grandparents' radio turned on at full volume, playing a tape my grandpa had of his favorite radio show from back in the 50s. I'm sure they thought it was weird and related it to my grandpa, but apparently they just went back to sleep. Later that night, the TV turned on with my grandpa's favorite show from his childhood, American Bandstand, turned on, which he also had a CD or recording of. This woke everyone up, and apparently it made my mom and grandma cry. They think it was my grandpa letting them know that he is okay and that he is watching over them. That was the last strange thing that happened for a while. About a year later, my grandma decided it was time to move out, so she had an estate sale and sold the house to a single mom. It was hard for her to let go, but she was happy knowing that it was going to a family in need. As far as I knew, everything was going good there until my mom decided to sell the acre of land that my grandpa gave to her. I recently got my real estate license, so they asked me to list it, but to go ask the woman who bought the house if she wanted to buy it or do a land contract before I put it on the market. I didn't have her number, so I went to her house and knocked on the door. When she opened it, I explained who I was and asked if she wanted it. She thanked me for the offer, but declined. She said that she would, but that she's trying to move out of the house as soon as she can. Looking at her as a potential client started to question where she was looking to move, and I asked why she wanted to move. She seemed hesitant to tell me why, but I asked her if there was anything wrong with the home. She told me that she has heard footsteps and other weird sounds in the house and that she just needed a change. I thought that it was weird that was enough for her to want to move out, but I brushed it off. I got her number and told her I'd be happy to help her sell the house and help her find a new home. She's still living in the house, but as we've talked more, she has opened up about why she's moving out of the house. Apparently, she's heard what sounds like a man crying in the basement about a dozen times since moving in, and it scares her kids so bad that they started sleeping in her room every night. She's tried figuring out what makes the noise, but the sound always stops when she opens the basement door. I've thought about asking my grandma if she's ever heard that noise before, but I'd hate to make my grandma think about something like that. I'm still working with this woman and we have just listed the house, so I'm hoping that once she gets a new place, her kids will be comfortable again. Now, like I said in the start, I still don't believe in ghosts. I've been atheist since I was a young teenager, and I always chalk everything up to something logical. Maybe the tapes playing in the night was someone accidentally rolling onto the remote in their sleep. Maybe the sounds are pipes or something. Maybe the lights flickering was because it's an old house. I'd definitely like to believe that it's my grandpa communicating, but that's just not me. I know this was pretty long, and maybe not what you are looking to read on this subreddit, since it's not a spooky story. But I felt like putting this out there and didn't know where else to post it. Also, sorry for punctuation and spelling errors. It's 1 a.m. and I suck at English. Thanks for reading.